Today we're going to be talking about how avoidance is a form of intolerance of uncertainty and how to stop avoiding the things that make you anxious. Hi everyone! In today's video we're going to be talking about the concept of intolerance of uncertainty and how it relates to avoidance. This is going to be the first in a series of multiple videos discussing various manifestations of intolerance of uncertainty. And what we're going to be talking about today is how avoidance contributes to a person being more intolerant to uncertainty and ways to build tolerance for uncertainty through overcoming the avoidance behavior. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about intolerance of uncertainty and avoidance. Now, I want you to imagine that you and your best friend had a big fight a few days ago, and you feel really bad about what happened. However, you find yourself constantly worrying about how upset or angry your friend might be about some of the things that you said during the argument. You might start to generate a lot of what-if questions, like, what if my friend never forgives me? What if my friend hates me now? What if my friend is going to tell other people what an awful person, an awful friend that I am? What might you be tempted to do in this situation? Well, if you're a person who worries a lot, you might find yourself avoiding dealing with the situation entirely. You don't reach out to your friend to apologize. You don't send them a text message to check in and see how they're doing or to see if they want to talk. It's tempting to want to avoid the situation entirely because the danger is, if I reach out to my friend to talk about the argument, it might lead to another argument. Or my friend might tell me that they don't want to talk to me ever again. My friend might not answer my call, and that would just confirm how upset and angry they are with me. This is an example of how avoidance is a manifestation of intolerance of uncertainty. And I've done a number of videos on the concept of intolerance of uncertainty and how intolerance of uncertainty tends to drive excessive and difficult to control worry. Essentially, intolerance of uncertainty causes a person to focus on all of the potential negative outcomes in a situation, and therefore makes the person feel much more anxious and worried about what might happen. Avoidance is a very common manifestation of intolerance of uncertainty. By avoiding things that we're worrying about, what that does is it creates a temporary state of certainty, a state of certainty in this moment. So, in the example of the argument with my friend, by avoiding reaching out to my friend, I have a temporary state of certainty that they're not yelling at me, that they're not telling me I'm a horrible friend, and that they're not telling me that they don't want to have anything to do with me ever again. None of those things are happening right now because I'm avoiding interacting with my friend. Because I don't know how my friend feels or what they're thinking about me after our fight, the intolerance of uncertainty gets me to think about all of the potential negative thoughts that my friend has about me and all of the negative outcomes that might result from our fight. And I don't want any of those negative things to happen. And so I avoid putting myself in any situation where those things might happen. So this is how avoidance is a manifestation of intolerance of uncertainty. We avoid things that we're not sure about and that we worry will lead to bad outcomes. And in doing so, we create a temporary state of perceived safety. So you might be wondering, what's the harm in this? If avoidance makes me feel better, and I feel less anxious if I avoid doing certain things, so what? What's the problem with that? Now, I don't think you have to think very hard to recognize some of the potential problems with avoidance as a way of coping with uncertainty in life. If we avoid everything that we're uncertain about because we worry that the uncertainty is going to turn out negatively, then our life becomes much smaller. We avoid trying new things. We avoid taking risks in life. We avoid learning something new. We avoid talking to new people. We avoid traveling anywhere outside of where we feel comfortable and what we know. So our world becomes very tiny and very restricted, very mundane, very boring, and very predictable. For someone who engages in a lot of avoidance of things that they're uncertain about or that are new, it's almost like they're trading in experiencing new and potentially enjoyable life experiences for the safety and security of what's known. However, this is all based on an assumption that if I'm not certain about something, then it's going to turn out badly. If I try anything new, it's going to turn out terrible. Now, you probably know that at a logical level, that's not the case. But as typically is the case with intolerance of uncertainty, it's not a matter of logically knowing that uncertainty doesn't always turn out badly. It's more a problem of a person not behaving as if it's true. So if you find yourself avoiding doing certain things, how do you know if that avoidance is due to intolerance of uncertainty or if that avoidance is due to simply not wanting to do the behavior? For example, if I find myself avoiding going grocery shopping because I hate grocery shopping and I'd rather just order in food, that's not an example of intolerance of uncertainty. In that example, the avoidance is more me being lazy and disinterested in grocery shopping. However, if I find myself avoiding going grocery shopping because I'm worried that I'm going to forget to buy something, or that I'm going to spend too much money, or that I'm going to run into someone at the grocery store and have a weird or awkward interaction, that's more indicative of intolerance of uncertainty avoidance. So the key to determining whether the avoidance is intolerance of uncertainty or something else relates to the motivation behind the avoidance. If I'm avoiding because I'm not sure how the situation is going to turn out, and I'm concerned that something bad is going to happen, that's a pretty good sign that I'm being intolerant of uncertainty. Okay, so you find yourself avoiding something and you recognize that it's you being intolerant of uncertainty. What do you do about this? How can you fix this? Well, the first step you've already done, which is recognizing that you're avoiding something and that the avoidance behavior is intolerance of uncertainty. The next step is to think about a behavioral experiment that you can do in the situation that involves you not avoiding what you're afraid of. Now, this doesn't have to be a huge step, but it can be a small shift in behavior in which you plan to engage in an approach behavior rather than avoidance. So you can think about these behavioral experiments as tests of your worry prediction. Let's use the example of me getting into the argument with my friend and talk about an example of a behavioral experiment. What I might decide to do is to send my friend a text message, checking in with them, apologizing for some of the things that I said, and seeing if they're open to talking about it. That's the behavioral experiment. That's what I'm going to do differently. The next step is to think about what I worry is going to happen in that situation. This is essentially my prediction of what will happen when I send my friend the text message. Now, it's important to think about your worries as predictions because that's all they really are. Worries are always just predictions. So, what might my worry predictions be in this situation? Well, I might think that my friend isn't going to respond to my text message, or that my friend is going to tell me to get lost and that they never want to talk to me again. My friend may block me from contacting them. Those are my predictions as to what's going to happen when I text my friend. So we have the experiment, what I'm going to do, and we have my prediction, what my worry tells me is going to happen. So the next step is to actually do the behavior and see what happens. This is the data collection step in the tolerating uncertainty experiment. And this is often where people who worry a lot get surprised by how excessive and unreasonable their worries are. Often when people engage in these behavioral experiments, not avoiding things that they're afraid of, they're surprised that it doesn't turn out nearly as badly as they anticipated. So by collecting the data, you have evidence which you can now compare to what your worry prediction actually was. And that's the last step, comparing what actually happened to what you predicted was going to happen. And this gives you a sense of how accurate your worries are at predicting what's going to happen. If you find over and over and over and over again that what you predict was going to happen doesn't happen, then it probably tells you that your worries are pretty terrible predictors of the future. And what this can do is to get you to start questioning how necessary it is to avoid uncertain situations or avoid things that you're not sure about. And therefore, it allows you to start expanding your world and trying new things because you have experience with your worry not being an accurate predictor of what actually happens. So, behavioral experiments around doing exposure to things that you're avoiding can be very powerful to help you overcome intolerance of uncertainty. Now, the other thing you can do is to take advantage of all of the naturally occurring opportunities to tolerate uncertainty on a day-to-day basis. For example, if you find yourself avoiding ordering something new at a restaurant or avoiding trying a different restaurant because you're not sure if you're going to like it, a tolerating uncertainty way of approaching that is to recognize that you always order the same thing and you always go to the same restaurant. And so maybe what you do is you order something different and see what happens. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but you just allow yourself to try it out and see what happens. I always encourage my clients to imagine the following question tattooed to the frontal lobe of their brain. If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? This question can be a major avoidance buster. If you find yourself avoiding doing something, avoiding returning a phone call, avoiding sending that email, avoiding taking that new exercise class, ask yourself, if I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? Well, you'd probably make that phone call. You'd probably send that email. You'd probably sign up for that exercise class. And in doing so, you build your tolerance for uncertainty because you're no longer avoiding all of the things that you're uncertain about in your life. And this can result in you feeling a lot freer, more spontaneous, and less anxious because you see that the world isn't as scary or as dangerous as your worry would get you to believe. So I hope that helps explain how avoidance is a form of intolerance of uncertainty, and how to recognize when you're avoiding things because of intolerance of uncertainty, and some of the things that you can do to tackle and overcome the avoidance behavior. I'd love to hear any questions or thoughts you might have about this, so please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you've been enjoying my videos and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.